Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy. This is the Faber Castell Loom, L-O-O-M, and it's a very interesting little pen. And actually, first off, I want to thank my buddies Robo Jim and Piotr. Robo Jim sent me a Faber Castell Loom back a while back there, but unfortunately I lost the video I filmed. And so when my buddy Piotr volunteered to donate one, it's like, yeah, absolutely, because A, I'd get a chance to spend some more time with one, which is great, and B, I'd get a chance to donate this little guy to charity and loan it out actually to a buddy of mine who's doing a lot of pen reviews lately. So that's great, and I appreciate that very much there, Piotr. So thank you, both of you, for sending this little guy along. Next thing, let's do a little size comparison here. This is I'll put the cap on here. First, here it is against your pocket jotter, your standard Bic Click stick pen, Pilot G2, and, here's a random pen I lifted from a Hampton Inn. There you go, case closed. That gives you that. A couple of other size comparisons in the fountain pen game. Right here it is against a Kaweco Lilliput here, and here it is against the Twisby Eco, which is a slightly larger pen, but yeah, we'll do a little bit more with that comparison a little bit later. Then finally, of course, this is a fountain pen. Fountain pens have an internal ink reservoir and whatnot. They deliver it via the nib, and it is, in fact, just a conventional fountain pen nib. It's just lacking some of the shape and cutouts that you normally expect there. So, but it works with any other converter. So anyways, let's talk about the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very interesting little pen. So on the good side, first off, I actually like this section of the pen a lot. I like this color. It's sort of a bronzy, chartreusey, Chardonnay. I don't freaking know what to call it. It probably starts with Char or something. But anyways, it's an interesting color. It's got a very nice depth to it, a little bit of metallicity to it. I like this color very much, and frankly, I like the design. It's very minimal. You've got some nice flat area here, and then it just kind of steps in there. But it's a nice curve with a nice grip to it with these little grooves. The barrel of this guy is great. Next thing, the clip on this guy is pretty damn good too. This is actually an articulated clip. What I mean by that is that if as you watch here, you can see that the clip actually lifts out a little bit. It's got like an armature in there, and it's got some spring. So it pops back down with a definitive force there. But it's not just relying on the force of the metal itself. It's not like a bent metal clip, which is really cool, actually. I think it works very well. It gives a lot of retention, but yeah, and it's got some ramp to it. I had no problem with this clip whatsoever. And it does have a very, very nice little polish to it. And actually, that brings me to my next issue on the good side, which is that this just has a lot of little attractive touches to it. You know, the nib on this guy, here, I'll zoom in a little bit. The nib on this guy is very, very attractive. You can see here, not only do they have the little Faber Castell logo in there with the F, but they've also put all these little dots on there, which is interesting and different, and looks maybe a little bit more sort of unique than your generalized kind of scroll work than you see on a fountain pen. So that's kind of cool. So I like the look of the nib a lot. It's a little bit more modern than most. It's got a very, very nice logo on the side of the pen here that I'll try and show off here. It's a matte black, so you're only going to see it in reflection, but still, that looks pretty cool. And then, you've got this clip, which has this beautiful finish to it. It's sort of a glassy, reflective sort of, oh, damn it, I forgot to change after work again. Whatever. But it's got this nice glossy finish to the clip there. I mean, the bottom of it is nicely concave here. There are a lot of really nice elements to this pen, and those things, to me at least, are great. So, that's the great here that's the good here, is that it's got all these attractive touches. It's got this nice articulated clip, and I do like the barrel of this guy very much, with very nice ergonomics, smooth hand. On the great side, this writes really well. This is a great nib. Because this is a fine nib pen, but it is actually both fine, see, I'll write here, fine tip, but it's also very wet. This is writing here. I'll give a little demonstration of that. That's a nice wet nib to it, and I like that very, very much, because very often fine nibs can feel dry, can feel a little bit unpleasant, but this guy is absolutely beautiful. It writes just great. I like this very much. It's maybe a little bit on the scratchy side, but this feels really nice. And the other thing is, if you want even finer, you can flip the nib over. This is a nice little trick from fountain pen world, and now you've got something that is still, wet, it still writes, but it is even finer. So if you need to make really fine cross-hatching or something like that, you can use that fliption, that's not even a freaking word, and it works just fine. So I like very much the nib and the writing experience of this guy. This is a pen that I enjoyed writing with on a regular basis, and so that to me is absolutely what's great. It just writes really well. On the bad side, the price here, look, for 55 bucks, it's okay. It's Kaweco aluminum sport pricing or so. I mean, it's in a reasonably contested area for fountain pens, but it's also not so bad either. I feel like the quality of the writing is enough here to justify this price. I mean, it's a great writer. And so if they are consistent in that, then you know what, I'm okay with that. But it also doesn't feel like, oh my God, value, in the same way that, for instance, the TWSBI Eco does. So, you take some, you lose some. Pardon me. Next up, the body of this pen is actually a little bit on the slippery side. You can see, well, you can't see. You can feel, if you have my hands, if you are controlling my hands right now, you can very easily feel that this is a very slippery sort of pen here. They've put a little bit of texturing on the barrel here, which helps it from sliding out of your hands altogether, but I very often found myself, especially when trying to pull the cap off, which you do have to do with this guy, it's not an unscrew sort of thing, I found myself slipping off this guy more often than I expected to. So that's not something I'm super in love with. Next thing, speaking of things I'm not in love with, if we look at the cap here, we can see that there's this little ridge around the bottom of it here. It's sort of a reflective metal. It matches the clip itself, but I gotta be honest, it feels a little bit sharp, and it just feels a little bit weird. It's not super comfortable, especially when you post the cap. This guy can post the cap, no problem, and when you do, it works fine. Oh, started to come undone there a little bit. But the problem is this starts to dig into your hand a little bit. Just makes it a little less comfortable when posting. So this little ring here just isn't doing it for me. Next thing, I gotta say, I'm not a big fan of the fact that the cap looks entirely different than the body of this pen. I like the body of this pen very much, in just a variety of ways, but the cap on it just feels like it doesn't match. I feel that, frankly, throughout. And the top of the cap here, I mean, look at this. This is supposed to be the Faber Castell logo, but you can't really tell that particularly. As opposed to if we look here, where it's very, very abundantly clear what's going on there. Here, it's not so much. So I just, overall, the top part of this is lazy. And then finally, on the bad side, it is very, very easy to unscrew this barrel. I mean, just a little tiny bit of turning, and suddenly this barrel is starting to come unscrewed. I just gave it a bunch of freaking torque there to lock it down there. But nonetheless, I found myself on a pretty regular basis when carrying this guy, accidentally unscrewing the barrel, or worse still, if I hand this to somebody to use, they'll start to unscrew the pen, and they'll end up doing one of these things, and the barrel comes off of it. So this is part of the reason why I tend to like pens where the barrel and the barrel and the tip basically are locked together underneath the cap someplace, such that you cannot accidentally unscrew it without uncapping it. And so this was probably the biggest functional issue that I had with this pen, is just that it was very, very common for this little guy to get unscrewed, especially if you do anything vaguely rotatey, and that's just not something I'm in love with. So there you go. That's the bad to me, is that it's very easy to unscrew the barrel with the cap on. The cap logo isn't really thrilling me. The cap is very differently finished than everything else. Weird when posted. This little ridge doesn't do it for me. It is very slippery, and for 55 bucks, it's okay, but it's not a stellar value. On the ugly side, there's nothing like, oh my God, jumping out at me, but I don't like this cap. It really feels like they grabbed the cap from the wrong pen and put it on here. I mean, this is a very nice, straight-bodied, straight-walled sort of pen. And then they threw this big bulbous black thing on the top of it there, and I don't freaking see it. I mean, okay, I guess, but I wish they'd given me the cap that goes with this guy. I know that it is, in fact, the cap that goes with this guy, but no, come on, guys. And so, to me, that's what's ugly, is that the cap on this just doesn't make sense, and frankly, it's thick, it's wide, it just doesn't need to be. So, that's the ugly there. Final conclusion on this guy, look, I have a love-hate relationship with this pen. I love this part, and I hate this part. The cap of this guy is pretty awful. The body of this pen is pretty excellent. With the cap off, this is a beautiful pen, and it's a great writer. With the cap on, it's a little bit big. It's a little awkward. Frankly, in the shirt, this is thick. This is a very, very thick pen here. And mind you, I have other thick pens. I mean, the TWSBI Eco is also a relatively thick pen, although I'm not a big fan of that. And so the cap on this guy is just not great. And no matter what state it's in, it's a little slippery still, and it is maybe a little bit pricey. And so I'm genuinely torn, because on the one hand, this really is a great writer. It's a very nice functional writing tool. And if you got one, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of reason to be happy with it. But then comes the cap, and then comes the fact that it's not incredible value. And actually, the elephant in this guy's room is exactly this pen here, the TWSBI Eco. I'll write it out here because, well, I've got a pen in hand. But TWSBI Eco. And this is a stub nib, this one particularly, so you get a little bit more line variation. But the thing is, this pen writes just as nicely as this guy does. It's bottle fill only. You can see there's a plunger system in here, so it fills only out of a bottle, but it has much higher capacity as a result, and it is 25 bucks less, which is a big difference and a big deal there. And so ultimately, I think for most people who I would send to the Loom, I'm probably going to send them to the Eco anyways, because a lot of the downsides are there already, the big hugeness and whatnot, but it's got a lot of advantages that this guy doesn't, so I don't know. Ultimately, where do I land on this guy? A little tough to say. If you've got one and you love it, then I totally get it. There's a lot to love here. And if you love the design, then absolutely, go for it. But if you don't love it, honestly, I'm with you there too, and I don't see myself sending people out of the way to pick one of these guys up, especially in a world where you can pick up a TWSBI too. So there you go. Hope this has been interesting, that you found it illuminating, and that this review has permeated the Faber of your being, and that I haven't Castell too many aspersions. Okay, anyways, hope this has been interesting. Have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.